Right, here we go.
Out.
The last one is my ugly point, and that's right. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to say the thing that is true, but no one wants to say it because, feelings get hurt. People have egos. People are popular. See, I'm going to say it. We all know it's true, but I noticed this conveniently skated by during the playoffs. Right, the reason why, if I'm G2, beyond all the amazing aspects, like, by the way, you almost did win that final. The joke is, you almost 3-0'd, a la Astralis at IEM Sydney. Right, if I'm G2, look, there's many ways I'm feeling awesome about this tournament. It was great. Monacy actually had some great performances. Hunter was like the sleeper carry of the fucking final and didn't get his props, actually. Fair play, did play fantastically. Alexi B generally did a good job for the first land with the team. But let's be real. Before the playoffs, not only was NiKo the number one rated player in the tournament, everyone had all the talk shows where we were all having this discussion. Is he actually the best player in the entire world? Is he better than Simple because he's the best rifler? He entries half the time. He's a monster even when he had back. Like, that was all great, but I have to say, he was incredibly conspicuous in these playoffs, his absence. Like, I kept watching these games, dude, and going, not only is he not NiKo, but he turned into some player I've never seen before. He became like an opening kill only bot. It's like he could get the first kill every time he takes that, but then he would just die instantly. Like, I've never seen I genuinely think he was tilted or something happened to him in those matches in the playoffs, the final especially. Like, I've never seen the guy just disappear like that before.
Yeah, this one was a weird one, right? Like the emergency for me is maybe not even the 2 for 13 halves, which are night and day from the performances, in the games before, but is the having to go to the AWP to bail himself out of certain.
He did that a few times, yeah.
Yeah, on Mirage specifically, right? And that's how you know something's wrong when he's starting to have to pick that up, right? Because he's not finding any action. Now, I don't know what it could have been because he's the one out of his team with the most experience in these type of environments. So I have a really hard time putting my finger on the why he had a hard time, because this would have been when there was no signs that this would have happened at all. Like,
sure.
He still, look, I'd have to, I don't know. It's just, there were some really weird games.
So I don't know what Xtaz not being in the playoffs would have to do with NiKo performing worse. In fact, I would, but maybe, I mean, this is just an assumption. Maybe he had to micro Monacy a little bit more. Maybe he had to help out with calling for Alexi B or something. Maybe, I don't know if, I don't know. I mean, I saw some mid rounds that were characteristically Alexi B style mid rounds, but I don't know. Maybe he had to there was a burden on him in terms of the calling in general, like either helping an individual out like Monacy or helping Alexi B with some system type structure calling or something. So I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he was on such a heater coming into the playoffs that's the only extenuating circumstance that I could point to that could have changed the dynamic of this roster at all. So hopefully next time Xtaz is playing, he's right behind him instead of Amanek, and hopefully next time we get the NiKo that we know and love.
I will say, just on a purely, again, we're having to speculate because we can't really know. We can only say in the survey it didn't look good. I will say, if I had to speculate like a possible reason why, this might sound like a really counterintuitive point, but I've seen enough teams to think this is the case. When you've had, remember, for most of NiKo's career, sometimes his fault, sometimes not his fault, like the fact he's from Bosnia and region that doesn't have loads of top players. Sometimes he has had to be this hard carry on his team. In fact, many times. The problem with that is this. When you do that, first of all, when you actually settle into that, essentially it's like being Steph Curry on the Warriors, mate. It's like you just have a green light to shoot all the time. So the good news is you can never make a mistake in terms of decision making, because essentially make every decision you need to individually frag, because we need you. You've got to pop off. Well, the downside of that is, right, if you then suddenly have help, like, Nick, you haven't just got Alexi B as like a real IGL. Now you've also got Hunter's really good, and Monacy's going off on stage. When you suddenly have, essentially, the pieces and the help, you could potentially get lost in your own identity. And also, by the way, that alone could tilt you. Think of that, all those years where you're dropping impossible numbers, but you lose the game close. Now, your team's doing awesome, and you're the one fucking it up. You're the one who's holding the team back. Like, if you became cognizant of that in a match, that could easily get in your head. Because one thing you can't do, unfortunately, is as much as like, if you're a commentator, for example, you do say things like you would say, like, he's got to like shake himself together, like, like you don't really literally do that. What you tend to try and do is just sort of hope you just get into a flow state, don't you? Just hope it just snaps out of it or whatever. But if you genuinely do that thing of sort of like, oh, I'm fucking the game up, oh, what did I do there? Like, I've seen people just crush their own mental doing that. Like, I've seen it happen in a few different times. So it's one of the reasons, by the way, why I always used to wonder sometimes if back in the day when Simple made those finals, he used to look a lot worse in some of the finals, because it was almost like having carried the team all the way to the final, he would then just sort of be like, fuck, now I'm expected to carry here, or I've just failed. And I always thought he got in his own head as well, and that's why he would sometimes have like a 6-kill performance, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, there's no way that's what happened. So I agree, it's a mystery, but man, it's so disappointing, because like I say, if I'm G2 as a team, look, everything was great, but like, mate, we could have won that tournament. Like, if you just turned up normally, we win, I think.
Yeah, that's the question though, right? Like Simple still puts the most of the time superstar numbers up when they're winning, but he doesn't always have to. And I think that's a good point about maybe, now that he has help. He didn't have help in the group stage. And then in the playoffs, he had. Isn't that so weird?
It's so weird, isn't it? I know.
It's just so and look, I think the thing is, people can look at his numbers and they can go, okay, yeah, in the playoffs, it wasn't that great, but it wasn't bad. Yeah, look, it wasn't bad, but that's unfortunately the thing is, when you're a superstar player like NiKo, we hold you to the bar of the superstar. Same thing as with the Zyrathenia conversation, right? It's like you're held to a standard that everybody else isn't, right? And that's the thing. Like, I look at the bounce back game he had on Ancient against VP. Like, that was great. After that really tight game against VP where we just needed, 1 or 2 NiKo impact rounds and they would have secured it much easier. We didn't get it, but then he bounced back in a big way and they just wiped the floor with VP. And then in the games from there on out, yeah, Na'Vi, the circumstances there, and then the close games on the final against FaZe, it's like, yeah, like if you didn't even need the same level you had in the group stage, you just needed it to be almost, like maybe even, 80% of that level, because I was like, oh shit, we got another team where NiKo has to put the whole team and he's back again. Like, that's what I thought was going to go into the finals. I didn't put any stock in Monacy showing up in his first outing as a 16-year-old, So, yeah, I think maybe just, the factor of Xtaz, the factor of now actually having some help in those key roles, like the in-game leading and the AWPing. Maybe he just needs a couple of tournaments under his belt, maybe not even a couple. Maybe next one he bounces straight back. It was an off performance and the difference between what could have been a trophy or not. But I think maybe this is just the next step in the NiKo storyline. Because I think like a loss like that for a competitor like him, and knowing that it wasn't the NiKo show is actually going to fuel him, like the same way as it fuels Simple, to just go, that extra 10% is going to make all the difference. So yeah, bit of a rough one.
By the way, as a quick tangent, because this does connect to exactly this point and when I could tell NiKo was fucked. This is a point I want to make, because I feel like fans have totally misunderstood this point, right? When I say I hate NiKo panic buying the AWP, that is not the same. You'll notice there's a key difference in the words between I hate NiKo using the AWP. Guess what? He is so skilled that if he wants to just be a hybrid and on a certain CT halves, or if he's just owning in the game, if he says, right, I want the AWP now, of course you give him the AWP, of course you let him do it. My point is this. Think about the way the AWP is used by non-AWPers. They do what I just said. They wait until it's a CT half where the AWP just really works on their spot, or they wait until they're having an amazing game and they feel like I'm hitting everything. Why would you do it on the opposite of that? Why would you be one of the best rifles in the world and go, my rifle game's gone to shit, so I'll just panic buy the most expensive functional gun in the game and just miss a load of shots? Because in that scenario, you're not hitting your game. You're not feeling good. This isn't a spot that just implies you should AWP. So the problem is, I've just noticed in his career, Shox used to do it himself when he was a star player. They both have the same flaw, in my opinion. They're too addicted to the idea that, like, if everything's going to shit, you buy an AWP and you just hit like 3 body shots and you've won the round. Like, oh, I'm back in the game. The problem is, I feel like that happens way less likely than in their mind they think it does. They think this is like, oh, this is like my get out of jail free card. Mate, this is like you're committing to staying in prison. You're just like, you're like turning down probation at this point in time. Like the odds that you buying this AWP out of nowhere, like late in a game, that's a tax on your team. It's just not as likely it's going to. So in my opinion, whenever you see that, that's warning signs. And as Chad said, if he's doing it on fucking Mirage is basically NiKo's office. If he's panic buying an AWP, like, warning signs better be going at this point in time.
It also overcrowds a youngster like Monacy as well. Like, you can double AWP on Mirage, like, fine. There's no, obviously, we see so many teams do it, but that's where, like, you send one AWP aggressive Pallison around when the other one plays mid, or he goes over towards B to have an early info play over there. It's not where you have one AWP connector and one window/ticket. Like, that's that right there is like you're giving less options to one of your other stars, right? And that's where it becomes an issue. But then at the other side of things, I put myself in NiKo's shoes for a second here, and this is where, you know, I think where we're going with this is like he needs to not default into that, but it's probably where he goes, shit, like I'm not doing any impact at all. Like if I can pick up the AWP and just get a fucking kill, like at least I'm not just dying for the team.
Sure.
He's probably where the head was at, but that's not what you want to hear. Like what you want to hear is actually, you know what, I'll just keep fucking banging out my role. And you know, I guess that's the thing. Like for him in the moment, probably this is the only way that I can help him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a fuck spot to find yourself in that.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.